Welcome to the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance hearing. My name is Julie Slama. I'm from Dunbar and represent the 1st Legislative District. I serve as chair of this committee. The committee will take up bills in the order posted. Our hearing today is your part of the legislative process. This is your opportunity to express your position on the proposed legislation before us today. The committee members will come and go during the hearing. We have to introduce bills and other committees and are called away. It is not an indication we are not interested in the bill being heard in this committee. It's just part of the process. To better facilitate today's proceedings, I ask that you abide by the following procedures. Please silence or turn off your cell phones. Move to the front row when you are ready to testify. Our order of testimony today will be the introducer, proponents, opponents, neutral, and closing. Hand your green sign-in sheet to the committee clerk when you come up to testify. Spell your name for the record before you testify. Be concise. It is my request that you limit your testimony to 3 minutes. We do have a light system going today. When you see that amber light, you have 1 minute left. We ask that you wrap up your thoughts then. If you will not be testifying at the microphone but want to go on record as having a position on a bill being heard here today, there are gold sheets at each entrance where you may leave your name and other pertinent information. These sign-in sheets will become exhibits in the permanent record at the end of today's hearing. Written materials may be distributed to committee members as exhibits only while testimony is being offered. Hand them to our page for distribution to the committee and staff when you come up to testify. We will need 10 copies. If you have written testimony but do not have 10 copies, please raise your hand now so that the page can make copy you. To my immediate right is Committee Counsel Joshua Cristalier, and to my left at the end of the table is our esteemed substitute committee clerk, Katie Quintero. The committee members with us today will introduce themselves, beginning at my far left.
Elliot Bostar, District 29.
Brad Von Gillen, District 4.
Ray Aguilar, District 35.
Kathleen Kauth, District 31.
Our pages for today are Maddie and Mia. The committee will take up bills today in the following order: LB 1416, 1147, 1229, 1132, and 849. With that, we will kick off our hearings today with LB 1416. Senator Bostar. And before he gets started, can I just get a raise of who's planning to testify on this bill today? Fantastic. And as we're cycling through, if you wouldn't mind, proponents coming to the first couple of rows as we kick things off, and then if there's any opponents doing the same, just so we don't get into staring contests with each other as things move along. Senator Bostar to open.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Chair Slama and fellow members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee, my name is Elliot Bostar. That's ELIOTBOSTAR. Represent Legislative District 29. I'm here today to present LB 1416, a bill introduced at the request of Governor Pillen that would create dual grant programs designed to increase the number of child care providers, support the child care workforce, and provide Nebraska families with reliable, accessible, high-quality child care solutions. Access to affordable quality child care is inextricably linked to Nebraska's economy. Without it, parents won't be fully engaged in the workforce, and our state will struggle to attract and retain new business and industry to our communities. Without meaningful change, hardworking parents will continue to struggle to achieve financial stability for their families. According to a Harvard Business Review report released in 2021, nearly 20% of working parents had to leave work or reduce their work hours solely due to a lack of childcare, and only 30% of all working parents had any form of backup childcare options. Despite the broad-scale importance of quality childcare, Nebraska's childcare providers and the educators who operate and work them lack the kind of support and incentives needed to be successful. The most recent data emphasizes the challenges faced by Nebraska's struggling childcare industry. According to the licensed childcare roster released by the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services on January 3rd, 2024, 9 counties in Nebraska currently have no licensed childcare provider at all. Arthur, Banner, Blaine, Hayes, Kippaha, Logan, McPherson, Sioux, and Thomas counties. Examining the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services license roster over the past few years shows that in 2023, there were nearly 12% fewer child care programs serving children ages 0 to 5 than in 2019 statewide. According to child care industry employment data received September of 2023 from the Nebraska Department of Labor, the child care workforce in our state currently experiences a 30% turnover rate. The Early Childhood Institute at the University of Nebraska reported in 2021 that 7 in 10 providers report staff members leaving the early childhood field entirely. That same report found that 9 in 10 providers employing staff have had difficulty hiring for open positions, citing both a general lack of applicants and an inability to offer sufficient pay. As part of the governor's task force on workforce challenges, public and private stakeholders convened to discuss childcare challenges and potential solutions. The group discussed the need to find innovative ideas that would approach this problem through a new lens. LB 1416 does just that. This legislates private sector and provides communities the opportunity to decide how best to approach their own unique childcare needs. LB 1416 does this by creating 2 separate workforce initiatives to be administered by the Department of Economic Development. First, this legislation creates a child care capacity building and workforce grant program. The program would establish a framework for providing funds to develop child care capacity in areas of greatest need, to serve children ages 0 to 3, and to support the child care workforce. To qualify as an eligible recipient for this program, any city, village, county, nonprofit, or organization deemed appropriate by the department must provide a 1-to-1 match for the grant requested. The match can be monetary or an in-kind donation. Applications will be prioritized based on how they will use the funding. For instance, those that want to support the child care workforce or create a new program in a county with no licensed child care access would be given priority. Second, this bill creates the Family Child Care Home Grant Program. As part of this grant program, the department will have the flexibility to create microcenters, a form of care that uses existing space from a business, church, or school to care for up to 12 children. These microcenters would require 2 staff and would rely on support from regional facilitator hubs to provide administrative and technical support. These facilitator hubs work to lessen the administrative burden and financial overhead on child care providers so that providers can focus on the most important work of all, caring for and educating Nebraska's children. Individuals that will testify after me will be able to provide additional details on these 2 grant programs. I want to extend my thanks to the many stakeholders that worked with our office to bring this legislation before you. I especially want to thank Governor Pillen for his work to bring early childhood education and child care solutions to every family in Nebraska. I believe that the diverse list of supporters behind me illustrate well what an absolutely critical issue this is to the economic and social well-being of the state of Nebraska. Our economy depends on quality, affordable child care programs to support our working parents. Nebraska job creators are hurting for a workforce to grow our state's economy, and Nebraska hurting for reliable, high-quality child care options to support their families. LB 1416 provides relief to both by providing flexible grant programs so communities can address their unique child care needs in the ways that best fit their unique requirements. Thank you for your consideration of this important legislation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Senator Bostar. Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Kauth.
Thank you, Chair Salama. You said 9 counties have no licensed childcare. Does it discuss at all how many kids are looking or how many kids need to have childcare? Is there a need there as well?
There absolutely is. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I actually think that there will be testifiers that will have that information just right at the top of their head. And if not, I'll get it before I close.
Thank you, Senator Kauth. Senator Von Gillern.
Thank you, Chair Solomon. In the fiscal note, I'm struggling to understand the financial side of this. And if you want to clarify, or if you want to wait for other testifiers, that's fine. But it says in the fiscal note, there's no prescribed grant formula or amount. Can you explain how we monetize this program?
Did you think we needed a
I'm curious.
Yes. So we are working, the governor's office, myself, and stakeholders are working to find the right number for the 2 programs.
Okay.
That's ongoing. Right now, the bill has a $0 fiscal note. So good news.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Von Gillern. Additional questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Senator Bostar.
Thank you.
We'll now open it up for pro funded testimony on LB 1416. Welcome, Mr. Zoller.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Salama, members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. My name is Kenny Zoller, that's KENNY ZOELLER, and I'm Governor Pillen's Director of Policy Research Office. I'm here to testify in support of LB 1416. I'd like to thank Senator Bostar for bringing this bill on behalf of the governor. Our state has a severe labor shortage. This creates a unique challenge for our existing businesses and hinders our ability to further grow Nebraska. Because of this challenge, Governor Pillen convened a workforce working group to examine our workforce issues. The group was made up of leaders throughout the state who identified 3 areas of focus to help address our workforce shortage: educational skill set development, housing, and childcare and early childhood education. Together, we considered creative solutions to add to Nebraska's childcare capacity. LB 1416 is one outcome of these efforts. The bill would launch 2 programs. First, it would create the Child Care Capacity Building and Workforce Grant Program. This program empowers the Department of Economic Development to make strategic investments to support local community efforts to increase child care availability, and the DED grants would require a 1-to-1 match. The program prioritizes the creation of child care programs in rural areas of our state where there are currently no all-day, year-round child care options. The Child Care Capacity Building and Workforce Grant Program is flexible to enable communities to use the grants for a variety of purposes. These include bolstering child care workforce, construction or remodeling of buildings to serve as daycares, and providing financial support to parents and guardians with kids in child care programs. The second program of LB 1416 would create the Family Child Care Home Grant Program. This program would help establish a microcenter network of child care providers. The vision is to help local communities and businesses get creative with existing space and resources to meet their child care needs. Another feature of this program is to establish a regional facilitator hubs to provide technical administrative support to family child care home programs. For potential child care entrepreneurs, the process of setting up a licensed child care program can be daunting. These barriers to entry may even dissuade them from providing child care altogether. We want to assist prospective child care providers with applications, zoning permits, and health and safety inspections so that they can quickly and easily start their businesses. The governor appreciates all the work that went into crafting LB 1416. The programs created through this legislation will have a tremendous impact on Nebraska. In closing, I want to take a moment to highlight the governor's broad policy objectives when implementing early childhood education and child care policy. First is that we must find the right fit for the kid. The state should not pick winners and losers between public and private in-home care or parents that want to stay at home. This is because every type of child care will play a role in solving this problem. Second, increasing access for early childhood education will have a direct benefit in educational attainment for kids. And the third, giving parents a choice in where they send their kids is imperative. Increasing child care capacity is mission critical for Nebraska. It's essential to the economic prosperity of our state and the well-being of our kids and families. The governor's office appreciates the many individuals who've engaged with the state to come up with creative child care solutions. So thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Zoller. Are there any questions from the committee? See none. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Chairperson Slama, members of the committee. My name is Ward F. Hoppe, W-A-R-D-F-H-O-P-P-E. I'm a principal of Hoppe Development. We build affordable and workforce housing across the state. We build big projects, we build small projects. In our business, we want to provide housing that meets the needs of our clientele, whether low income or workforce. And to respond to need, we try to develop childcare into or in conjunction with every project we have, big or small. We currently see the need for childcare in conjunction with the need for affordable housing. We currently are working with the Nebraska Early Child Care Collaborative and D. Old Anderson Architects of Omaha on a study to create and design the integration of in-home daycares into our project scopes, whether large or small. It is our hope that we can leverage daycare with purpose-built housing to accommodate providing daycare in all communities with affordable housing needs. Integrating daycare and early childhood education into or in conjunction with projects has turned into a significant effort in our development process. In other words, trying to figure out daycare for our projects consumes a heck of a lot more of our time and effort than it should, and equal to about any other portion of a project. So we think this bill would create and facilitate getting daycares and daycare into our projects. Should be noted that installing daycare into housing comes at a cost. And in low-income housing tax credit and workforce housing, there's little money to spare. So this bill and grants therefrom potentially could fill the gaps created in projects to allow added daycare facilities. Our model incidentally focuses on in-home daycare, i.e. 8 or less children per facility generally. And essentially we create in conjunction with our apartments or our units. We build a house so that it could accommodate 8 kids in an in-home daycare. We support the bill and believe it would be well worth the money for the state to increase affordable daycare. And we're talking across the state.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hoppy. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your work. Additional proponents for LB 1416. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Slama and members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. My name is Nicole Vint, and N-I-C-O-L-E-V-I-N-T, and I'm the Child Care and Development Fund Administrator for the Division of Children and Family Services Office of Economic Assistance within the Department of Health and Human Services. I am here to testify in support of LB 1416, which will create a Child Care Capacity Building and Workforce Act. The department has made concerted efforts through the work of the Child Care and Development Fund CCDF program to increase the quality of child care and the skills of the child care workforce. CCDF works with many partners and stakeholders statewide to continue to achieve higher quality standards for child care providers and their workforce. The department recently invested $26 million into a statewide capacity building initiative. The initiative is set to create over 5,900 new childcare slots with 3,683 confirmed slots created to date. This has also eliminated 2 childcare deserts, Boyd and Loop counties, which previously had no licensed childcare. In addition to this initiative, the department collaborates with other partners and stakeholders to continue these efforts. The department acknowledges the vital service and role childcare plays in the Nebraska economy. LB 1416 will offer additional opportunities to address the growing concerns related to childcare capacity across Nebraska by ensuring increased access for working families. We respectfully request that the committee advances the bill to general files. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vint. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Additional proponents for LB 1416.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Nicole Fox, NICOLEFOX, representing the Platt Institute. The Platt Institute supports ideas that propose to reduce barriers to economic opportunity, which is why I'm here today to support LB 1416. LB 1416 could provide a positive impact on Nebraska's economy by attracting workers into the childcare industry, creating opportunities for entrepreneurship into the childcare industry, and increasing access to childcare for Nebraskans who need to participate in the workforce. During the 2023 interim, the Platt Institute held a week-long series of meetings across the state with the primary intent of discussing Nebraska's high property taxes. We visited Columbus, Kearney, North Platte, and Scotts Bluff. In addition to meetings with the public, we met with local chambers of commerce and elected officials. Nebraska's workforce shortage and the lack of available childcare was brought up in each community we visited. Childcare centers faced significant challenges during the COVID pandemic. Capacity restrictions led to decreased enrollment, and temporary program closures made it difficult for some centers to continue operation. Childcare workers were forced to search for work in other industries, leading to childcare staffing shortages and reduced childcare availability. Employment in childcare has not returned to pre-pandemic levels. Between January and April 2020, employment in the childcare sector declined by 33%, almost 3 times the national average of overall employment. Labor force participation overall declined during the pandemic, possibly as both a driver and as a result of decreased employment in the childcare industry. Like overall labor force participation, it remains below pre-pandemic levels. The emergence of remote work has posed both opportunities and challenges for workers. Many industries discovered that the remote work their employees engaged in during the pandemic could become a new way of conducting business, as it was cost-effective and employees were not necessarily required to live locally. Remote work is not an option for all industries. While some medical care can be provided virtually, much of it requires healthcare providers to be physically present. In terms of education, although virtual coursework was temporarily the norm, most educational activities have returned to the physical classroom because of the benefits of in-person learning. Both healthcare and education employ a significant number of workers across the state. And additionally, workers in the trades and in manufacturing, also a significant part of Nebraska's workforce, do not have the option of remote work. For many working families, the cost of childcare can be significant. For childcare workers in Nebraska, whose mean average wage is $13.46 per hour compared to a mean wage of $26.48 across all occupations, the cost of childcare is even more of a burden. Because LB 14 will eventually require the use of taxpayer dollars to create this new grant program, we do feel that a pilot program approach or a program sunset is a prudent and fiscally responsible consideration if needed. Data could be collected to ensure the program is ultimately accomplishing what it's supposed to do, and if so, then the program could be renewed by the legislature. I see that my time is up, so I thank you for the opportunity to testify, and again, we just really see this as an important workforce bill for our state.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fox. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Additional proponents for 1416. Welcome, Mr. Sloan.
Mr. Sloan, thank you very much, and members of the committee. My name is Brian Sloan, BRYANSLONE, and I'm the president of the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here today on behalf of the Nebraska Chamber as well as the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce to express support for LB 1416. I want to thank Senator Bostar and the governor for their leadership in addressing one of the top barriers to workforce and economic growth in our state, which is the continued affordability and availability of childcare. Our Nebraska Chamber Board has identified this bill as an important priority to strengthen Nebraska's workforce. The legislation obviously creates 2 grants that increase the supply and capacity of licensed childcare. The first being the Child Care Capacity Building and Workforce Grant Program, which is a strategic move recognizing the challenges faced by families and communities across the state. It's a coordinated approach and also provides technical assistance to grant recipients. This addition will foster greater collaboration between government entities and private organizations looking to solve community issues around childcare unique to their communities. Second, the Family Child Care Home Grant Program gives our communities and businesses the ability to create microcenters without overregulation, and more importantly, acknowledges the diverse needs of childcare found throughout the state. In total, these grant programs demonstrate a holistic approach to addressing the childcare issue while providing flexibility for communities to address their specific community needs. By prioritizing grant recipients based on criteria such as increased childcare capacity for younger children, supporting the childcare workforce, and addressing specific county needs, this bill ensures targeted and impactful investments. We believe this is a very well-crafted bill and should be part of a comprehensive solution to the childcare challenges. Once again, thank you to both Senator Bostar and Governor Pillen for their work in bringing this legislation. The Nebraska's business community encourages the committee to advance this bill to the floor for further consideration and passage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sloan. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Additional proponents for 1416.
Welcome. Hi, thank you for having me here today. Chair Slama and members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. My name is Elizabeth Everett, spelled Lizabeth, and I'm the Deputy Director of First Five Nebraska. First Five Nebraska is a statewide public policy organization focused on supporting policies that provide quality care and learning environments for our youngest Nebraskans. I'm here today to testify in support of LB 1416 and would like to thank Senator Bostar for his leadership on this important legislation and Governor Pillen for prioritizing care as part of his administration's goals. Instead of reading through the rest of my testimony, what I would like to do instead is to answer some of those questions that we had around the gap numbers, and then also to specifically discuss the bill and what we're trying to do with it. So as previously mentioned by previous testifiers, this bill was in response to the governor's workforce task force. It creates two separate grant programs, one specifically designed for those communities that are trying to increase their childcare capacity and support the childcare workforce. One thing to note is that there is a one-to-one match. So what we're really trying to do is to encourage that private sector investment prior to that state investment, right? So the grant recipient has to show that they have that match available before any grants can be dispersed to the recipient. Additionally, the grant is extremely flexible so that the community can determine how best to use it. So they can use it for increasing childcare capacity, supporting the childcare workforce, helping parents afford childcare, really anything that they need, because we do know that each community has their own specific problems to address this childcare crisis. In addition, the second part is a family home provider, specifically around micro centers. We would be one of the first states in the country to actually implement the concept of micro center. It's another form of care that would hopefully streamline the process for providers, right? So essentially what you would do, you would create multiple sites in a specific region. You would work with businesses, churches, schools to donate the space. And then there would be a regionalized hub that would provide the administration support, provide tax support, provide curriculum support. So people on site would be specifically responsible for providing care. And then the administrative support would be responsible for providing all the back end work that providers sometimes don't have the time to do so. Now, when we think about need, I would like to throw a couple of data points at you. Right now, pre-pandemic, the most comprehensive data we have is that pre-pandemic, we had 20,000 children in Nebraska that did not have childcare if they needed it, right? In those 9 counties, there's about 319 children that right now do not have care if they need it. That's again to say that we do not have current capacity to meet the current demand. We are in a huge shortage. And with a 30% turnover for childcare workforce, this specific bill is designed to hopefully support the childcare industry and support the workforce so that our parents can, one, provide the care to their kiddos, and then also to make sure that they can go to work and be comfortable doing so without worrying about where their kids are at. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Everett. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Chair Slama and members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. My name is Amy Meyer, A-M-Y-M-E-Y-E-R, and I am the director of the Orchard Child Development Center in Nebraska City. I am grateful to be here today to speak in favor of LB 1416 and would like to thank Senator Bostar for introducing this bill on behalf of Governor Pillen. The first 5 years of a child's life are the most formative to their ongoing development and directly impacts their health, well-being, and overall trajectory of their lives. Quality childcare that focuses on research-based practices and implementation of Nebraska early learning guidelines is imperative to raising our next generation. Unfortunately, the absence of accessible quality childcare is negatively impacting Nebraska families and children. In response to community needs, last August, we opened the Orchard Child Development Center in Nebraska City. We have the capacity to serve 52 children and are contracted to provide subsidized care to meet the most needs of our most vulnerable families. While working to open and serve our community, we received funding from the American Rescue Plan Act and the Business and Partnership Grant offered by the Department of Health and Human Services. This one-time funding allowed us to modify our building to meet licensing and sanitation regulations and current fire codes. We were able to purchase high-quality supplies for health and safety standards, educational materials, and equipment that fully furnished our center. The most impactful result of this funding was the ability to provide paid training to staff prior to enrolling children, which has undoubtedly impacted our program today. Without this funding, we would not have been able to strategically plan and implement the quality care our program offers. Receiving this funding allowed us to open our center and offer childcare in a community where accessibility to quality childcare is a struggle for families. While the funding we initially received allowed us to open our doors, this one-time funding is not an ongoing source of revenue to allow us the ability to ensure we are operational in the future. Current struggles in our program and many other programs throughout the state include rising costs of operations, the difficulty of recruitment and retention of staff, and being able to pay staff with wages that reflect the importance of their work. Ongoing funding would mean an ability to recruit and retain teachers of quality, would provide an opportunity to modify our existing building to increase capacity, and would help to ensure that families in the state of Nebraska have accessibility to quality early childhood education that will have a lasting impact on children in our state. Thank you again for allowing me to testify today, and thank you again to Senator Bostar for introducing this important piece of legislation. I urge you to move LB 1416 to general file. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Wonderful to see a District 1 provider here
Thank
today.
you.
Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Dr. Echo Kohler, ECHOKOEHLER. I have a doctor in nursing practice degree and have been a registered nurse for 21 years. I'm here on behalf of the Nebraska Nurses Association, speaking in support of LB 1416. The Nebraska Nurses Association is the overarching organization for the over 30,000 registered nurses in Nebraska. The most common occupation for working mothers is registered nurse. Women's employment is highly dependent on their ability to find childcare. Nurses were not only on the front lines battling COVID-19, the extreme workload coupled with caregiver role strain due to increased childcare and domestic responsibilities have forced women to adapt their schedules and in some cases leave their jobs entirely. Nebraska has a nursing workforce shortage and it is critically impacting patient care. Hospitals across the state are reporting delays in access to care, delays in transfer of care to better equipped facilities, and staffing shortages are forcing hospitals already in the red to invest significant resources to recruit and retain staff. The Center for Nursing reports between 2018 to 2022, there's been a 9.5% decrease in Nebraska's nursing workforce. Of nurses in Nebraska, 6.9% report that they're very likely to leave their primary employment over the next 12 months, and with almost half of them being from the youngest generations, Generation Y and millennials. This would result in nearly 1,000 nurses between the ages of 24 and 55 very likely to leave their employment over the next 12 months. A major factor in the nursing shortage is gender role disparity, given that 94% of nurses in Nebraska are female. Mothers across all economic sectors are twice as likely to report that their ability to work was affected by childcare compared to fathers. A study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found childcare stress was associated with anxiety, depression, burnout, intent to leave the job. Nurses have the added difficulty of trying to find childcare outside typical hours, such as 12-hour shifts, nights, weekends. One study reported only 8% of center-based care in this country provides non-standard coverage, a statistic sure to be closer to zero in rural Nebraska. When I started my nursing career as an emergency room nurse, I paid over $6 an hour for childcare for my 3-year-old. I could only find a drop-in center that was half of my take-home. While nursing wages have increased since I started my nursing care, cost and access to childcare remains a significant problem. I brought this little guy today, not as a prop, but truly because I lack access to quality childcare. We're currently on a waiting list, and it might even be up to 18 months before we have full-time care available. Helping mothers with children stay employed makes good business sense. The cost to replace a registered nurse can run upwards $64,000, and that statistic is from 10 years ago, so probably a lot more now. And the replacement of an experienced nurse with one with less experience may impact patient safety and quality of care. The nursing shortage impacts not only Nebraska's physical health, but also economic health, with lack of care impeding the ability of communities throughout the state to attract and retain residents and businesses that employ them. But there is hope. A large study at an academic center nationally demonstrated an association between institution-affiliated childcare and lower stress. This bill provides an opportunity to increase childcare capacity in Nebraska, providing working moms the ability to enter, re-enter, and remain in the workforce. For these reasons, the Nebraska Nurses Association supports LB 1416, and we ask you to please advance this bill.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kohler. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here
Thank
today
you.
and
Thanks
for bringing your
letting me
+1.
go. He's been so good. And thanks
Absolutely.
for letting it be during his nap time.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Amara Madsen. That's AMARA-MADSEN. I'm a licensed mental health practitioner and a service director for Cedars Youth Services. The mission of Cedars is to help children and youth achieve safety, stability, and enduring family relationships. We provide a continuum of services for children, youth, and families, including in-home family supports, childcare, emergency services, foster care, supports for your youth transitioning into adulthood, and many more. I'm here today in support of LB 1416. I commend Senator Bostar for his commitment to child care services in Nebraska and thank him for his recent visit to our facility. I also want to thank Governor Pellin for his recognition and support of child care as a priority for our state. I want to articulate the support of Cedars Youth Services for this bill because it invests in the social, emotional development of children, supports working families, and prioritizes assistance for children ages 0 to 3. Specifically, we support the provisions that develop a process for the provisions of grants that would increase child care capacity for children 3 years of age or younger, support the child care workforce, and expand the availability of care. Cedars operates a child care center here in North Lincoln. This center is funded in multiple ways. Some families pay out of pocket. Many of our families are low income and receive funding through Title 20 federal child care subsidy. And then our Cedars Foundation certainly helps to maintain the building and subsidize services. But even with all of these funding sources, the cost of care is high, especially for infants and for children who need additional support due to developmental delays or behavioral challenges. LB 1416 offers an opportunity for providers like us to receive funds needed to keep up with existing demand and to grow. This is vitally important because as a mental health professional with experience both in child welfare and child development, I cannot underscore enough the value that access to childcare has for the social emotional development of children. Not only does quality childcare help to develop brain function and social skills in children, but it also strengthens the social support networks of families. Our child care center is well equipped to connect families to the broad array of services that Cedars has to offer. As such, our child care center is more than just care. It's truly a part of a continuum of preventative services that help avoid bigger challenges for families. This is especially valuable for families that face challenges such as poverty. Part of our commitment to providing childcare is to ensure that an underserved part of our community has access to high quality yet affordable care. Our center, located in Lincoln's historic Clinton neighborhood, is in a low-income census tract and serves hardworking families, many of whom receive the state child care subsidy and access our child care services with charitable help from the Cedars organization. We have been the only licensed child care provider in this census tract for many years. We know well the challenges providing high quality care for a working population. Additional state support will benefit families that contribute to the workforce needs of our state. Most importantly, I want to articulate our support for the focus on serving children ages 0 to 3, especially infants. There is a much higher staff to child ratio required for infant care, and this, along with other care and safety requirements, makes infant care much more expensive and can significantly limit capacity. These challenges make for an incredibly difficult business model for child care providers. LB 1416 recognizes this challenge and will help providers expand and innovate to provide safe and high quality care for our littlest Nebraskans. We urge your wholehearted support for LB 1416. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Metzen. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here.
Good
Welcome.
afternoon, Chair Slama, members of the committee. My name is Dexter Schrodt, DEXTER-SCHRODT, President CEO of the Nebraska Independent Community Banker Association. Our community bank members are uniquely positioned to understand the needs of their communities. And as you heard from Mr. Hoppy, the two needs are always housing and childcare. So that's why we'd like to thank Senator Bostar and Governor Pellin for working and bringing forward this well thought out piece of legislation that will help to bring the private and public sectors together to address at least one part of the need, and that is childcare. We do appreciate the prioritization of childcare needs in the rural areas of our state. And we believe that the regional hubs are an innovative idea that will assist in getting childcare programs off the ground. Sometimes it comes down to that last bit of nudge that somebody needs, the confidence that they need, that they have the right information, that they can launch their own childcare program. And you heard a little bit about the 1-for-1 grant matches, and we do believe the allowance of in-kind matches will also go a long way in this bill to addressing childcare needs, because there are communities across the state that might have the space needed. It's needed the additional liquid capital to really get that off the ground. So we do urge your support of LB 1416.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schroet. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Heidi Pieper, HEIDIPIEPER. I'm a mom, a licensed foster parent, a rancher, and I'm on staff with Nebraska Farm Bureau. I live outside of Farnham, a small town in the southwest part of the state, and I'm here today in support of LB 1416 on behalf of the Ag Leaders Working Group, which represents 96% of all farm gate receipts in Nebraska. There is a massive shortage of childcare options across Nebraska, leaving many families without the opportunity for parents to work or requiring families to travel long distances for childcare. Staff shortages are at the core of this dilemma, as qualified educators are difficult to find and retain. Affordability is also an issue. Often, it makes more sense for a parent with young children to stay at home because their earnings are not enough for childcare. LB 1416 intends to remedy this issue in multiple ways by providing support for Nebraska communities who are wanting to work towards long-term solutions for childcare programs, the families who utilize them, and the businesses and industries that rely on the workforce that they empower. Access to childcare is an issue in Nebraska communities, large and small. A one-size solution will not fit all of the various needs across the state. We appreciate that LB 1416 creates two grant programs, the Child Care Capacity Building and Workforce Grant Program and the Family Child Care Home Grant Program, providing numerous options for communities to meet their own specific needs. With that said, we're concerned that this bill does not appropriate any funding to these programs and that there's scribed grant formula for the second one. To that end, we urge the committee to amend this bill in a way that would provide more clarity as to the funding and priorities of these grants. We commend Senator Bostar for including funding for regional facilitator hubs to provide administrative and technical support to micro centers. That offers a unique opportunity to provide care for a small number of children while having access to support and resources for one's businesses. Also, we appreciate that the grant has a broad base for eligibility and that it's able to support new and existing providers and/or facilities. The mandatory annual reports to the legislature will be beneficial, maintaining checks and balances about where taxpayer dollars are being spent. They will also help to determine any further modifications needed to improve the program. LB 1416 will build a stronger, more dependable workforce while simultaneously providing an opportunity for children to be supported during the most critical time in their development, creating a strong foundation for the future. This bill helps us ensure Nebraska remains a great place to live, work, and raise a family. We appreciate Senator Bostar for bringing LB 1416 and encourage the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee to take our thoughts into consideration as you prepare LB 1416 to be advanced to general file. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pieper. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Additional proponent testimony for 1416. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairwoman Slama, members of the committee. I'm Jennifer Krieger, JENNIFER, with the Greater Omaha Chamber, expressing our support for LB 1416. Thank you, Senator Bostar and the governor, for bringing this forward. I'm very glad that you had a lot of great testimony today, mostly because it gave me time to sprint across the street when I realized Mr. Sloan left us off of his testimony. So in the interest of all the great testimony you've had, I will just say I associate my comments with what he told you earlier. But I will also say that I was honored to be on the governor's working group on workforce, and childcare was absolutely understood by everybody to be a key component of the workforce crisis. You cannot talk to anybody who talks about workforce issues without talking about childcare and housing. So appreciate the fact that you're taking this up and urge your favorable consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Krieger. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for sprinting here. And again, if you're planning to testify as a proponent on 1416, please feel free to file up towards the front 2 rows, please. Welcome.
Okay, good afternoon, Chairwoman Slama, members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. My name is Marion Miner, M-A-R-I-O-N. M-I-N-E-R. I'm here on behalf of the Nebraska Catholic Conference, which advocates for the public policy interests of the Catholic Church and advances the gospel of life through engaging, educating, and empowering public officials, Catholic laity, and the general public. I'm here in place of Tom Venzer, who would normally be here to deliver testimony on this issue. So thank you for having me as your guest today. The Catholic Conference represents, among our other entities, 112 schools, 2,500 educators, and 27,000 students. While not all these schools have childcare or early childhood education programs, a substantial number of them do. These programs run east to west and north to south throughout our state. We find it a great joy and serious responsibility to assist parents in their role as the primary educators of their child. LB 1416 provides an important opportunity to invest in the state's child care and early childhood education programs across the state. The one-for-one match grants address specific needs and provide tracking and accountability mechanisms that help measure outcomes for further review by the legislature. The challenges that the Catholic Church experiences with operating child care centers and early childhood education programs are similar to those faced by the many other entities and businesses involved in this profession and vocation. Without going into each of those, we would like to highlight one principled concern and one practical concern to highlight how LB 1416 can be helpful. Our educational programs work hard to assist the poor. Sacred Scripture reminds us of this responsibility in the 25th chapter of the Gospel of St. Matthew. In the Catholic social teaching tradition, this is referred to as the preferential option for the poor, which has a special form of primacy in the exercise of Christian charity. This preference not only applies to our individual actions, but to our broader social and political responsibilities. By providing one-for-one match grants, this program will strengthen child care and early childhood programs to assist parents, especially the working poor. Our working poor families often have both a mother and a father working outside, which places on them the moral responsibility and financial burden of finding quality childcare and educational opportunities. LB 1416 would help our schools' financial capacity as well to continue assisting and subsidizing these families' expenses. Additionally, our programs face difficulty with workforce retention. While we strive to be competitive, we are often outpaced by larger corporations, especially in our smaller rural communities. While no single legislative program is going to remedy the problems experienced in this area, this is a smart step in the right direction to help those who are dedicated to caring for and educating children as a form of assistance to parents who are the primary educators of their children. I'll stop there and thank you for the opportunity today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miner. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, additional proponents for LB 1416. Any additional proponents for LB 1416? Last call. All right, we'll now open it up for opposition testimony to LB 1416. Nobody here to testify as an opponent to LB 1416? Fabulous. Is anyone here to testify in a neutral capacity on LB 1416? See none. Senator Bostar, you're welcome to close. And as you approach, we do have a number of letters for the record. 37 proponent letters for the record, 0 opponents, 0 neutral received for LB 1416.
Great. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Chair Slama and members of the committee. I appreciate your time and attention to this matter. This is a really important bill that I think will do a lot of good across the entire state. There's an extraordinary need for it. And honestly, this may come as a surprise, but I don't think I can say anything better than what was said before. So with that, I'm happy to answer any final questions about the legislation.
Outstanding close. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much, Senator Bostar, and everybody who came out to testify today. Senator Bostar, you don't get to go anywhere. You're the next bill up, but we will give you a minute to transition the room.
Yep, when you make the same.
Amen. That's 0.
Don't get used to that.
0 neutral. Wow.
Whoa, sounds like one.
Oh, please. I'm pretty sure you know about puppies and the credit union stock more than sacrifice.
I'd have. Oh, yeah.
All right. Welcome back, Senator Bostar.
Thank you, Chair Slama and fellow members of the Bank of Commerce and Insurance Committee. For the record, I just want to point out that apparently the insurance industry regrets not appearing as a proponent on the previous bill. With that, for the record, my name is Elliot Bostar, ELIOT-BOSTAR, representing Legislative District 29, here today to present LB 1147. I introduced LB 1147 on behalf of the Nebraska Insurance Federation. Legislation relates to a newer type of annuity entering the insurance marketplace that is defined in the legislation as an index-linked variable annuity, but is commonly referred to as a registered index-linked annuity, or RILA. RILAs are a type of variable annuity contract that is linked to the performance of a market index such as the S&P 500, but also includes a level of protection if the index performance goes negative, called buffers. RILAs are good options for individuals whose risk appetite falls between the traditional guaranteed fixed payment of the deferred fixed annuity and the deferred variable annuity, whose performance and value is directly tied to the performance of investments. Nebraska's current annuity law does not contemplate the existence of RILAs. LB 1147 provides the necessary guidance to domestic insurance companies on how to treat the assets held by the company for the RILAs. These statutory rules will allow companies to establish separate investment accounts for RILAs while stating how these separate investment accounts will interact with investments, accounts, and assets otherwise held by the insurance company. These rules ensure that the promises made by the companies who will sell RILAs will be fulfilled in the future and provide direction to the financial examiners of the Nebraska Department of Insurance when reviewing the RILA separate investment accounts. The provisions of LB 1147 will allow Nebraska domestic insurers to sell RILAs competitively to consumers all over the nation, including to Nebraskans. I know representatives of the domestic life insurance industry are behind me to provide more details on LB 1147. Now, I'm passing around a suggested amendment from the industry that removes an unnecessary cross-reference. I urge the committee to advance LB 1147. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Senator Bostar. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll now open it up for proponent testimony on LB 1147. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Chairman Slama and members of the committee, thank you for considering the views of Pacific Life today. Is David Lautenschlager, spelled D-A-V-I-D, L-A-U-T-E-N-S-C-H-L-A-G-E-R. I'm an actuary at Pacific Life, and my role focuses around directing large-scale actuarial initiatives for the organization. Pacific Life has been in business for more than 150 years, offering life insurance and retirement solutions to Americans in need. I've been fortunate to work on many insurance and retirement products during my decade-plus career in Omaha with Pacific Life, and I've recently been very involved in the development of a new indexed-linked variable annuity product. From here on, I'll refer to this as a RILA that Pacific Life will begin offering later this year. Pacific Life strongly supports LB 1147 as it will help ensure our product has appropriate regulatory guardrails and is competitively priced. We would like to thank Senator Bostar for sponsoring this important legislation. I will speak first to what LB 1147 does and then to why it's important to Pacific Life. LB 1147 adds a new section to the state's insurance statutes to define a RILA, what it is, and make it clear on how the product is treated under Nebraska law. LB 1147 also makes technical changes to current law to outline how the accounting treatment works for investments held on behalf of consumers who purchase these products. The legislation lays out the parameters for how those assets can be held and transferred to ensure that consumers get the greatest value from these products. In short, LB 1147 would clarify Nebraska law, thereby enabling Pacific Life to be the first domestic insurer in Nebraska to offer a competitively designed RILA for retirement savers in Nebraska and nationwide. In addition to the specific impact of this legislation on Pacific Life, consideration of LB 1147 is a critical step to help all Nebraska-based life insurance companies provide innovative solutions to address the pending retirement crisis in the United States. According to FINRA, over half of Americans are concerned they will run out of money during retirement. Annuities are a key savings and insurance option to help individuals and families protect against longevity risk by providing a steady stream of income during retirement. Furthermore, annuities are often purchased by middle Americans who are self-employed or work for small business farms. They're a valuable tool for those who do not have access to employer-sponsored plans. While RILAs have been around for more than a decade, in recent years they've grown in popularity as an investment option for retirement savers. This type of annuity is popular because it's based in part on the performance of an index, such as the S&P 500, allowing potential gains from market growth, but contains features that can limit risk. In plain terms, generally sets RILA apart from other types of annuities is consumer choice. The consumer chooses the level of downside protection offered by the insurer he or she rate. RILAs serve a key role as a financial option for retirement planning, providing consumers a way to accumulate assets in a manner that helps ensure that retirement income can keep pace with inflation, all while providing more downside protection than direct market investments. If enacted, LB 1147 would modernize our state statutes and position Nebraska as a market-leading regulator in this space. The legislation builds upon current laws and regulations in Iowa, Ohio having similar statutes, as well as ongoing work with the National Association of Commissioners. Periodically updating insurance laws like LB 1147 will ensure that Nebraska stays a modern and competent regulatory regime for insurers. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lautenschlager. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. And just a quick reminder to anybody testifying after, we do have a light system. Once it turns red, we ask that you pretty quickly wrap up your thoughts just so everybody has a chance to testify today.
Especially Reverend Bell.
Well, I mean, given the fact he missed the last bill.
That's right.
Welcome, Mr. Bell.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Slama and members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. My name is Robert M. Bell. Last name is spelled B-E-L-L. I'm the Executive Director and Registered Lobbyist for the Nebraska Insurance Federation, and I am appearing today in support of LB 1147. I certainly appreciate Senator Bostar for introducing LB 1147 on the Federation's behalf. As you know, the Nebraska Insurance Federation is a state trade association of insurance companies. Nebraska has a number of domestic insurers who write annuities. You've already heard from Pacific Life, but those members also include Mutual of Omaha, Emeritus, Woodman Life, Assurity, MetLife, Midwest Holdings, among other companies. I think Senator Bostar and Mr. Lautenschlager did a fantastic job of describing the provisions of LB 1147 and explaining what a RILA is and how an insurance company would account for the assets backing up the RILAs. I would merely add that the interested members of the Federation have met and reviewed LB 1147 and are excited to competitively offer these annuities across the United States. Some non-Nebraska domestics already offer RILAs to their consumers, and this will place Nebraska domestics on the equal playing field with their competitors. I also appreciate the willingness of the Department of Insurance to work with the industry on this legislation. I want the committee to know that is not the case in most states. So again, thank you to Senator Bostar for introducing LB 1147, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Bell. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon,
Director Dunning.
Madam Chair and members of Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. For the record, my name is Eric Dunning. It's spelled ERIC-DUNNING. I'm Director of Insurance, and I'm here today to talk to you about LB 1147 in support. LB 1147 is going to tailor some existing standards from other specific laws in our insurance codes applicable to the separate accounts and variable annuities for a type of individual deferred annuity that includes indexed linked variable annuities, which I'll be referring to as an ILVA, just to shake things up a little bit this afternoon, because I see how, it's exciting stuff. So ILVAs are growing very quickly in their acceptance and utilization, and it's the fastest growing annuity product in the country. These annuity products are very important for Nebraskans who want to manage their retirement income over the course of their lives. The ILVAs are attractive because they're combining features from both fixed index and variable annuities, and it's a way to participate in those market gains up to a limit or cap rate. But very importantly, it also gives them an opportunity to have a bit of a buffer against market losses. Against market losses. I'm going to skip through a little bit of this testimony because it's duplicative of what we heard earlier. Unvariable or fixed annuity, though, there's an important thing for the committee to be aware of as they can consider the legislation. Products only are filed with the Department of Insurance, but an ILVA must also be filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission as a variable annuity product and security. So the agents who sell these ILVAs must pass security sales representative. So a consumer can choose whether an index strategy is appropriate for them with the help of a licensed agent who has been authorized to sell securities and is licensed both by the Nebraska Department of Insurance and an SEC license. I think that's an important safeguard for Nebraskans who are potentially considering this. So with that, seeing the yellow light on, I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you very much, Director Dunning. I appreciate you highlighting that point. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Additional proponent testimony for LB 1147. See none, is anybody here to testify in opposition to LB 1147? See none, is anyone here to testify in a neutral capacity on LB 1147? See none, Senator Bostar, you're recognized to close. And as you approach, we had no letters for the record on LB 1147.
Well, I'm going to take the 10 minutes I'd originally planned for the closing of the last bill and apply it here.
No.
Is there a light?
This bill is just about ensuring that we are remaining competitive nationally, and that the great companies that are domiciled and headquartered here in Nebraska have the same business opportunities as companies that have just decided to be located in far lesser states. And so for that reason, this is really important. It also ensures that Nebraskans who are looking for certain kinds of newer products have the ability to acquire those products from Nebraska companies located in the best state. And so with that, happy to answer any final questions. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Senator Bostar. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. This brings to a close our hearing on LB 1147. Next up is LB 1229. Senator Wayne. Yeah.
Okay, since he's here.
Okay.
You killed it.
And so with this brief
Two bills in
pause, we'll
opposition.
plan to reconvene at 2:40. We'll just let everybody get up and stretch their legs for about 4 minutes and stand at ease.
Okay.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming back. We'll now kick off our hearing on LB 1229. Senator Wayne.
Thank you, Chairwoman Slama. In the Banking and Finance Committee, Insurance Committee, sorry, Finance.
No.
Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. Let me get the name. I'm hardly ever here according to, oh, I am never hardly here. All right, my name is Justin Wayne, JUSTINWAYNE, and I represent Legislative District 13, which is North Omaha and North Douglas County. This bill today is a third attempt to deal with arguably one of the top three issues in the state of Nebraska. Last year, I introduced a bill to create the Department of Housing, or maybe 2 years ago, I introduced that bill. That went to Urban Affairs. Another year, I did a housing bill that went to government. And this year, I'm doing a housing bill, and it's now in front of banking. That tells you that if this is the number one issue, according to both rural and at least in North Omaha, housing and affordable housing, you would think that one, we would have a place in the legislature that house it, and two, you would think we have somewhere in our government system that housed it, and we don't actually. What you hear is an attempt for me to say, well, 3 years ago when I introduced the Department of Housing, everybody said, well, we already had NIFA, so why don't we just have NIFA be the lead on housing? I said, okay, great. I'll try that now. So I did this now. And the reason why this is important is because we literally have housing programs in DD, NIFA. We actually have it in Health and Human Services. We have a housing program there. And we have one more housing program that I cannot think of. I'll think of it later. That is in a different part of our government. So I'll probably remember that on closing. And so it makes it hard for us as a state and as a legislature to deal with the housing crisis if it's spread out through multiple committees and it's spread out through multiple agencies. This is an attempt to bring it underneath one agency. And this is not actually an agency, but I would say a quasi-political subdivision is creating the statute according to NIFA. This is the first time in 7 years that I wrote very complicated bills, and the fiscal note says, one, NIFA is not a state agency, and we cannot receive appropriations, which I don't necessarily agree with because they are creating a statute. But two, they use the word inoperable. I've never seen that in the fiscal note before. So, and I do have an easy way to correct that. The easy way to correct that is just give the appropriations to DED, which we currently do, and use DED as a pass-through to NIFA to do that. I do make some changes to the board, and I won't walk through line by line of the entire bill, but this is just an attempt to put everything in one place. And so people can deal with everything in one place. If the committee does not want to tackle this big problem that we face as a state in this short session, I would ask that starting on sections 11 and 12, starting on page 9 through 11, be incorporated in any committee package. And here's the reason why. Out of everything that's important to me in this bill, the most important thing to me is removing the conflicts that are listed on the board. What we have is people on the board who dabble in the industry. Many of them are consultants for the industry, and they just abstain from voting. We know how that really works. If you are a consultant and you're on the board, quite honestly, you have an inside track. You know what the board is looking for when they hand out LIHTC grants or allocations. And what I'm trying to do is remove that. There's a question on is it retroactive as far as the conflicts? I would entertain any amendment to say moving forward from this effective date. If you were a part of a LIHTC housing program 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you still may be having some jurisdiction over that program or that project because LIHTC can last for a significant amount of time. And you may have been involved a long time ago. That wasn't my intention. I don't want this to be retroactive. I'm just saying going forward, that board and those members of the board should not have any financial interest in any other decisions. It's not fair to the public, and it's not fair to those who are not elected or connected or have the inside track. Just abstaining because they're a consultant or they actually receive funding, which one board member particularly also received allocation funding of tax credits who was on the board. He did abstain from voting, but I just don't like the appearance. And this is something that I'm doing consistently. If you look at the LB 146 and the inland port, you can't even have ownership in the area where the inland port is designated, because we are trying to be transparent and have no more conflicts among these boards that we have. And so out of everything, I think it's important. I think if we have a housing crisis, the fact that it's broken up in different areas and we as a legislature can't even figure out which committee the bill should go to, complicates why we're not dealing with our affordable housing and our housing crisis. But more importantly, the only critical thing I think is we have to remove these conflicts or the appearance of conflicts that happen too many times, not just on NIFA, but across our agencies. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Senator Wayne. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
I will stay for closing because I really don't want to go back to Education Committee.
God bless. You can just stay here for the rest of the day. It's fine. We won't tell them. Any proponent testimony for LB 1229? And Senator Wayne, is that your Stanley Cup? Yeah, don't leave that behind. Proponent testimony for LB 1229. Seeing none, is anyone here to testify in opposition to LB 1229? Seeing none, is anyone here to testify in a neutral capacity on LB 1229?
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Slama and the members of the committee. My name is Shannon Harner, SHANNONHARNER. I'm the Executive Director of the Nebraska Investment Finance Authority. As an involved entity in this legislation, our testimony on this bill is neutral. NIFA appreciates the confidence that Senator Wayne's bill shows in the NIFA staff. Our entity is motivated by our mission, which is growing Nebraska communities through affordable housing and agribusiness. NIFA staff are passionate about their work, which has continued to expand over the last few years, but today our testimony is intended to provide relevant information regarding our work and our interaction with the state and DED. And as I'm sure you're aware, the director of DED is NIFA's board chair, and NIFA has a very close working relationship with our DED staff. Fundamentally, there were two items that I wanted to just tag as problematic. And the first was the transfer of duties and functions, the transfer of the employees. Under the bill, the duties and functions of the housing would be transferred as of the effective date to NIFA. And this purports to also transfer the positions of the employees to NIFA. The concerns that we have regarding this are that NIFA, while we are authorized under our statute, specifically 58239 sub 10, to receive and accept from any source aid or contributions of money or property or labor or other things of value, we're not, as Senator Wayne noted, a government agency. We are a government entity. And as a result of that, with consultation with DAS, what we have determined is that we would not be able to accept wholesale providing of state employees to us and keeping them in the state system or the state pension system. They would have to, you could give them to us, but they would then be NIFA employees. They would not be eligible for any of the state documentation that they currently get. I say I have 1 minute left. The second thing to point out is existing contractual obligations. There would have to be some significant vetting of contracts that DED has signed to ensure that they can be transferred if they need to be transferred. So those are just kind of the two highlighted portions of things that we applaud the importance of having housing people across the state work together. The other agency that Senator was thinking about was NDEE. So there's housing at DED, at NDEE, at DHHS. And then NIFA works to try to stay in the middle and sort of float all of those things together, which we do through the statewide housing framework and council. And we've been working very closely over the last 3 years on trying to consolidate our communications with those other agencies. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Ms. Horner. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much for your perspective on this. Any additional neutral testimony on LB 1229? Seeing none, Senator Wayne, you're welcome to close. And as you approach, we received no letters for the record on LB 1229.
Thank you. Clearly, it's the biggest problem we have, and we have no testifiers. This is great. I would just end saying that, one, there's nobody in opposition, so a consent calendar is possible. It's a joke to laugh, Senator Von Giller, it's okay. Second thing is I mean, seriously, like, at the end of the day, I would accept if we can just do section 11 and 12 to remove the conflicts. And that's the only thing that came out of this committee. I would work that on the floor. I just think it's important that we remove some conflicts.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Wayne. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we won't tell the Education Committee if you want to hang out here.
Don't forget your cup. I'm laughing now.
Needs to help back to the other hearing room.
This brings to a close our hearing on LB 1229. We will now kick off our penultimate hearing of the day on LB 1132, Senator Lippincott. And I'd ask anybody wishing to testify on LB 1132, please come up to the first couple of rows so we can expedite things and save everyone's time getting out of here today. What? I said penultimate. That's next to last. Senator Lippincott, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Slama and Banking and Insurance Committee. My name is Lauren Lippincott. That's Loren Lippincott, and I do represent District 34. LB 1132 seeks to double the rate of liability insurance an individual must carry. Nebraska has not raised the amount of liability insurance someone must carry since 1983. That's 41 years ago. And you can see that in the original bill that was being passed out to you right now. The world's a more expensive place now than it was. And this has been specifically for victims of car accidents. When they receive medical bills, they anticipated would be covered by either their insurance or the offender's insurance. Behind me, I have someone who can explain better details to you on those specifics and answer your questions. But I want to tell you about a friend of mine very briefly. In Central City, we had a young man, his name's Chris, 51 years old, out one day riding on his motorcycle, and he gets broadsided by a driver who was cited for his third DUI. That's his subject for another day. But Chris had to be revived in Central City, our hometown, flown to Lincoln to hospital, had to be revived a second time. He ended up spending about 30 days in the hospital, underwent 3 surgeries on his leg, 2 for his, 1 for his heart, 1 for his chest, had to be revived twice. His insurance was $1.2 million. Also $20,000 of lost wages, and he had to pay $20,000 out of pocket. So the insurance coverage right now, which it is in many states, is 25, 50, 25. Most of us all have that in our liability coverage that we have for our cars. But this bill, this proposal would raise that up to 50, 150. Specifically, it would be $50,000 because of bodily injury, disease, or death of one person in any one accident, and subject to such limit for one person. That's the first figure. The second figure is $100,000 because of bodily injury, sickness, disease, or death of 2 or more persons in any one accident. And then the third figure is $50,000 because of injury to the destruction of property or other persons in any one accident. Some of these titles are things that we don't normally talk about: liability, comprehensive insurance, collision insurance. So I did write on your handout there what each one is. And what we're talking about today is just simply liability insurance, which pays for damage to another person's car from an accident that you cause. So if I hit Senator Van Gilleren's car, no cause on his part, but it's me, my insurance would pay for his automobile. Comprehensive insurance would be optional coverage that protects against damage to your vehicle caused by non-collision events that are outside of your control. So Senator Aguilar's car is parked in his parking lot. His neighbor's car or neighbor's tree falls on his automobile. That would cover his car, comprehensive insurance. And then collision coverage helps to pay for or replace your vehicle if it's damaged or destroyed in an accident with another car, regardless of who is at fault. It's collision. With this bill, there would be no cost to the state, as you can see in the fiscal note. Costs keep going up. This bill helps to bring liability insurance up to a better standard of care. And behind me, I do have someone who can answer better any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Lippincott. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll now open it up for proponent testimony on LB 1132.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Kathleen Neary. I am speaking in favor of LB 1132. Just by way of background, I am a lawyer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you spell your name for the
Sure.
transcribers?
Kathleen, Kathleen. Last name is Neary, N like Nebraska, EARY.
Thank you very much.
For nearly 30 years, I have represented persons who were injured in automobile collisions or were killed as a result of motor vehicle accidents. I am appearing on behalf of the Nebraska Association of Trial Attorneys today. Now, as Senator explained, LB 1132 would propose to increase the minimum liability limits for motor vehicles from $25.50. And the way that's explained easily is $25 per person, but for any one collision, never to exceed $50,000. So if there's 5 people hurt in a collision, the policy limits would never exceed or payments of $50,000. Just by way of reference, in 1983, when this 41 years ago in 1983 was the last time that the legislature increased the liability limits for motor vehicle collisions policies. And they increased it from 1530 to 2550, where it has remained 41 years later. And that is well before some of the members of this distinguished committee were even born. And we know that in 1983, a stamp cost 20 cents and a loaf of bread cost 66 cents. And we know that health insurance has skyrocketed. And we know that everything, well, except for your salaries, have gone up and I would vote for a pay increase, you work hard, have not gone up in price. $25,000 in liability insurance coverage is just simply inadequate. And you're saying, why does this matter to me as a state senator? How does it affect my constituents? Here's how. If John Doe runs a red light and collides with Mary Smith is transported by ambulance in the emergency room, has a PET scan, maybe an MRI due to a broken femur or a head injury. She stays overnight in the hospital. She misses 10 days of work under doctor's orders. Under that scenario, it would easily exceed $25,000 in damages. When the $25,000 in liability coverage is exhausted, well, there's 3 scenarios. Mary Smith files bankruptcy, which leaves the medical providers high and dry. Or she may go on Medicaid, and our state and the taxpayers of our state would pick up the bills because John Doe did not have adequate coverage. Third, she might have a UIM claim against her own policy, and that would increase her cost. None of these scenarios are good. Placing responsibility with a negligent driver is fiscal responsibility, and I would encourage you to adopt 1132.
Thank you very much, Ms. Neary. It should be noted for the record that Senators Ballard, Senator Bostar, Senator Dungan, and myself were all born after 1983.
Thank you.
Or, I mean, Senator, I don't know. I'm just guessing. Your birthdays are on Wikipedia. I don't know. Are there any questions from the committee? I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
All right, seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. All right, any proponent testimony for LB 1132? Any additional proponents for LB 1132? Seeing none, we'll now open it up for opposition testimony to LB 1132.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Chair Slama, members of the committee, my name is Carrie Snowden, Kerriesnowden. I am employed by and a registered lobbyist for Farmers Mutual of Nebraska. We're the state's leading carrier of homes, farms, and automobiles. We are here today in opposition to LB 1132. The current requirements of 25, 50, 25 is a generous coverage structure that is sufficient for most claims and in line with the majority of other states. I have provided you with an exhibit that demonstrates this. This bill would not only double the liability minimum requirements, but it would also double UM and UIM. That's uninsured and underinsured motorist coverages. Currently, only 42 states have required BI limits of 25, 50 or less, including our neighboring states of Dakota, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and Wyoming. You'll see only 2 states, Alaska and Maine. There's an asterisk there for Michigan, which is an outlier, which we don't like to talk about Michigan, have 50, 100. Nebraska does require a minimum amount of UIM coverage, which not all states do. The current required amounts are sufficient for the majority of claims. Based on our company's claim history in 2022, 75% of our claims were settled less than $25,000. No state has more than $25,000 in required minimum limits for property damage at $25,000. And the important thing to remember is these are just minimums. We can each individually choose to increase the amount of coverage depending on our individual financial and risk situations. But most importantly, we want to be able to continue to offer a product to the public that provides adequate protection for most claims, but at an affordable price. Doubling the minimum required limits will increase the cost. As an example, based on our company's base rating, changing limits from 2550 to 5100 would result in a 54% increased premium to the bodily injury limit, an 85% in premium for uninsured motorist coverage, and a 54% increase to the premium for underinsured motorist coverage. To someone or families just trying to make ends meet, it could mean the difference between carrying coverage and letting it go. It's not unheard of for someone to obtain insurance just to register a vehicle, but then to drop it the next day. An increased cost could lead to more uninsured drivers. Nebraska currently is a 9.3% uninsured driver rate. This has increased slightly over the past few years, but we certainly don't want it to increase any further. When an uninsured driver causes an accident, responsibility then falls on our individual underinsured motorist coverage to pick up the costs. It's better public policy to have a greater participation in the auto insurance market at a lower price than to have less participation with a higher cost for insurance. Therefore, in sum, the current required limits are sufficient, in line with the majority of states, and it keeps insurance affordable for all Nebraskans. With that, we urge you not to advance this bill out of committee.
Thank you very much, Ms. Snowden. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Mr. Bell.
Thank you. Chairwoman Slama and members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee, my name is Robert M. Bell. Last name is spelled B-E-L-L. I'm the Executive Director and Registered Lobbyist for the Nebraska Insurance Federation, the State Trade Association of Insurance Companies. I'm appearing today in opposition to LB 1132. I'm proud to say that the Nebraska Insurance the top 10 writers of private auto insurance for Nebraskans. These top 10 writers include nearly 84% of the total market share for our state, according to information from the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. As you already heard, LB 1132 would double the current minimum amount of mandated coverage for private passenger automobile insurance. The current 25/50/25 is the most common level of minimum coverage in the United States, according to the Insurance Information Institute. And Nebraska is also one of a limited number, 15 states that also require both UI and UIM, which you've already heard. We have a very low uninsured rate. In a perfect world, no minimum limits would be required by law. While I don't have the stats in front of me, I want to believe that most Nebraskans are concerned about financial protection and have far more auto coverage than is required by law. The legislature does not pass these mandates to make the requirements on those who already are responsible financially and able to have adequate coverage. Instead, mandates are passed to force those individuals who would not otherwise purchase coverage by a minimum amount. Those individuals who struggle to afford auto insurance will not be benefited by doubling of the minimums. Their premiums will increase, perhaps to a level where they cannot afford insurance and may drop out of auto insurance when they have other decisions to make about what goods and services to purchase. These mandates affect Nebraskans at the margins, and insurance companies are concerned that LB 1132 will drive up the uninsured rate in our state. Finally, I'll just mention the auto insurance market does seem to be working in our state. Nebraska has a residual market for auto insurance. This is for individuals who cannot find auto insurance on their own in the open market. So we have this residual market. Only, I think it's less than 10, maybe it's 6 Nebraskans currently reside in this market. Doubling of these limits could make finding coverage harder. Mainly, though, the Nebraska Insurance Federation believes LB 1132 will increase rates for those who can least afford coverage, leading to higher uninsured rates. Certainly appreciate Senator Lippincott's story and do feel bad for the individual involved. Hopefully they had health insurance to help them cover their costs related to that, but we do oppose 1132. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bell. Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Bostar.
Thank you, Chair Sloan. Thank you, Mr. Bell. I'm just trying to understand some of this. So
sure.
What we want is we want people to independently adopt an insurance policy that offers sufficient financial protection. And we want them to do that on their own, and we think they should. And we think most Nebraskans do, from what I gather.
I would agree with that statement.
Great. All right. But we don't want to increase the minimums because it could make insurance harder to afford.
For those people that struggle to afford auto insurance to begin with.
Right. So that particular universe of folks who would struggle to afford an insurance policy with increased minimums are the same people we're hoping are independently buying extra insurance to cover themselves. But of course, they don't have a lot of assets to protect, right? There's not.
Yeah, they made the decision not to because they don't have the assets.
Right. So they don't have assets to protect.
Sure.
So they don't need more liability coverage. So in that situation, isn't the party that's ultimately kind of left hanging is in this case, in an accident situation, right? Someone with bare minimum limits, has no assets, hits someone else, does some damage. They have no incentive to have any more coverage for liability.
Right.
So the other person's the one that is coming out of the situation poorly.
The person that was hit and is not
Yes.
liable, well, presumably their insurer is coming out less fortunately than they would. I mean, and if I'm in an accident and I personally have more than the minimum limits, right? And let's say I'm in the hospital for a couple of weeks. Certainly my bill, as we've talked about healthcare costs, is going to be very high. But there's layers to that, right? It's not like I'm going to go immediately onto Medicaid or something like that. My health insurance is going to step in and make those payments to the hospital. My insurer is going to step up. My underinsured insurer is going to step up. they're going to work out things behind the scenes with one another, and hopefully litigation wouldn't have to follow for that. But you're right. I mean, the individual that is at the margins and can't afford, it's struggling to afford insurance in the first place, probably doesn't have the assets necessary to protect. However, I guess I would say if you suddenly force I think I heard Ms. Snowden say a 50% increase and then an 80% increase on their premiums, they're probably not getting insurance to begin with if we double the limits. And so they have no protection at all. And they may not have any assets, so there may be nothing there to sue.
Right.
So.
And so there's nothing there to sue, which is happening now, right? There's what, 9%
Yeah, but
motorists are insured. So
Sure, that's
in
true.
order for everyday Nebraskans to be protected, they must ensure they have policies that are accounting for people that don't have any insurance. The only way to work. And so if we're already doing that, the cost of that is already borne upon everyday Nebraskans. We're already having to pay more to deal with a system that isn't adequately covering the risks that is for everyday Nebraskans.
I think the one pushback I would say on that, and that is in a case where somebody is injured badly and has to have surgery or some other kind of medical intervention, correct? Or maybe multiple people if there's multiple people in the vehicle. But we also know that most auto insurance claims are for below the limits that we currently have in the law. As an example, I bet I have filed where myself or my teenage children or my wife have been at fault. All of those accidents have been well below the minimums now. And we've been fortunate, right? We haven't had a situation where we've been in a very serious motor vehicle accident where higher limits may come involved. But we know that most like fender benders, things like that, when your constituents call and are really angry about somebody not having insurance, it may involve kind of that small kind of stuff.
So I'm glad you brought that up. And this is my last point I'm going to try to ask about. So yes, it was stated before that the vast majority of claims are below the current limits. I think trying to make the point of therefore, then why do we need to raise them? But if the vast majority of claims are below the current limits, then how could raising the limits have a significant impact on the premiums required?
Ooh, you're asking an actuarial question. I wish Mr. Lautenschlager was here to help answer that. Or if Ms. Snowden was here, maybe she would be able to better answer that. I'm guessing that's because, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you.
Thank
That's
you
a
very
great
much.
question. So.
Thank you, Senator Bostar. Additional questions from the committee? Senator Jacobson.
I just want to follow up on the questions by Senator Bostar. And I guess from personal experience, it seems to be the bigger issue out there are the uninsured or the underinsured motorists, particularly the uninsured motorists. This past summer, I had someone driving a semi that I owned, had someone run a stoplight. They hit them several $1,000s worth of damage. They have no insurance. Mm-hmm. So you ask, how can that be? How can they be driving a van with no insurance? And the common practice is go take out an insurance policy, write the check for the minimum, go get your vehicle license, go back, cancel the policy, and you drive uninsured. To me, that's the bigger issue that we're dealing with out there. And if we push more people into an uninsured status, which is, I think, what was being alluded to here, there is a minimum, as I understood out there, as out there today. If we raise the minimum, everybody's going to pay more. And I'm not an actuarial either, but I understand that as you raise that, they've got to factor that across the whole gambit in the event that we do have some that are higher. And it is a minimum. Everybody can go out and take umbrella coverages. They can take it much higher. Many do. But to me, after spending the summer with you guys, it seemed like the last summer, which I don't ever want to do again.
Just wait till the next bill.
Yeah. It's clear that insurance companies have a certain payout ratio, and you're going to have to pass costs on to the extent that you have them. So premium increases are real. And when I get to my bill next, we'll talk about that a little bit. But it seems to me that's where the issues lie. Am I missing something here?
I was waiting for the question.
There's a question.
No, I mean,
I was
yeah,
at
I
the
mean,
at the end.
we feel like if you minimums, you're going to have more people that are uninsured and more situations that Senator Jacobson addressed. Certainly, if you're worried about uninsured motorists, this is not the bill for that, unless you want to lower the limits and then maybe you'll have less. But even then, I don't know. So, and I'm not advocating lower limits.
Thank you for your answer. I'm on very thin ice here. So
okay, yeah, I got you.
Thank you, Senator Jacobson. Additional questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Bell.
You're welcome.
Additional opponent testimony for LB 1132.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Slama, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Corby Gilbertson. It's spelled Korby-Gilbertson, appearing today as a registered lobbyist on behalf of the American Property Casualty Insurance Association, otherwise known as APCIA. We are in opposition to LB 1132. I'm sure that shocks you. This has kind of been a perennial issue in front of this committee. I'm going to try not to repeat what was said before me, but to try to maybe address Senator Bostar's question is look at Michigan has some very high rates, but then they can also be waived. So it's kind of a strange outlier state. But when they increased their limits, they now have a 25% uninsured rate. So we're hovering at 9%. So all we know for sure is that when you do raise it, you do raise the number of people that just don't carry insurance anymore. I was doing some research to see if I could find anything new to testify about this year. And I did find one interesting thing that in California, which raised theirs up to 30, 60, and 15. They also have a state-funded low-income insurance option for folks who can't afford the premiums for their 30, 60, 15, which obviously is not much more than we have right now. So there would be one suggestion you can do, but I would note for that lower income policy, they offer the limits of 25, 50, and 10. So it's actually less coverage for that group. So it might seem backwards as to what you were talking about, but I just found that very interesting. If we would adopt these, we would be highest in the country. I would say in 1983, we're apparently way ahead of our time when we did it, because if you look at what every other state does, we are already right in the middle or a little bit higher. I think we rank about number 12 in the nation. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, cough drop. Thank you, Ms. Gilbertson. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
You.
Anyone else here to testify in opposition to LB 1132? Seeing none, is anyone here to testify in a neutral capacity on LB 1132? Seeing none, Senator Lippincott, you're welcome to close. We did receive 2 opponent letters for the record. 1132, Senator Lippincott waives closing. Our hearing on 1132. We will now kick off our last, but certainly not late, famous last words. Last hearing of the day in LB 849. Just a quick reminder to committee members, we will have an exec session after this. Should not take long, God willing. So yeah, please stick around. And just a show of hands, who's planning to testify on LB 849? Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, Senator Jacobson to open.
All right, Chairman Slama, members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Company, our committee. My name is Senator Mike Jacobson, MikeJacobson, and I represent District 42. I've introduced LB 849 at the request of an insurance agent in my district. I'm really going to kind of just cut to the chase in the open and kind of outline what the reasons are. As many of you know, we're in a unique situation right now with insurance carriers. I sat down and had an opportunity to spend some time with Eric Dunning, our insurance commissioner last summer, who kind of gave me a heads up on what he saw happening in the industry. From an industry standpoint, you've got reinsurers through the pandemic that saw significant losses due to wildfires, a number of other storms that have occurred. And those losses going through the pandemic, you can imagine with inflation rates, what they were, labor issues, it was causing significant insurance claims that were blowing right through the company limits and off to the reinsurance companies. There's been a significant pushback as a result of that. And so what's happening now is really all insurers are taking a hard look at loss histories, coverages, and trying to determine how do we hold our numbers together. And so consequently, I'm sure all of you have seen some stories from constituents who have indicated that they've seen significant increases in premium. And in some cases, they've seen non-renewals. Largely, this non-renewals are coming because of loss history. So in many cases, there are still people out there that if they've got a $1,000 deductible and they're in an accident and they've got $1,200 worth of damage, they turn in a claim and they get the $200 check. That's probably the most expensive check you're ever going to get because you now have filed a claim and that's going to impact your claim's history. So what we're finding, particularly in rural Nebraska, is a number of larger commercial operations, larger farming operations and ranching operations that mirror a lot of what you're seeing in the commercial industry today, where they're maybe involved in seed sales, they're maybe involved in other activities in addition to farming and ranching. So what you're finding today is we have a current situation where if you look specifically at the bill and it's making one small change, and that would be that today agricultural buildings and P&C coverage is grouped with personal lines and homeowner policies as opposed to being treated more like commercial lines. If this bill were to pass, it would allow for them to be treated like commercial lines. So what does that mean? It allows for the insurance companies to adjust premiums up and down and make changes to the deductibles as opposed to what's already been laid out with the State Department of Insurance in terms of what their rates are going to be. I will tell you that since introducing the bill, I know the agents who will be speaking behind me will talk about some of the stories that they've run into. I have met with some companies and with the insurance lobby since the bill was introduced. There's been some pushback on that in terms of where they're seeing it and is this the right fix? So I would just encourage you to listen to the testimony today, kind of evaluate what some of the issues are out there. I don't see this as a bill that's necessarily going to move this year because it doesn't have a priority, but I do think that this is an issue that's developing and that may need to be adjusted as you listen to testimony today to understand more of what this problem is. I don't think this problem in the industry is going away anytime soon. And so we're going to be continuing to deal with some of those issues that are presented. So with that, I'll stop and ask for any questions. I doubt if there'll be any, but I'd love to take them.
Thank you, Senator Jacobson. Are there any questions? Seeing none, will you stick around to close?
Oh, sure I will.
Oh, fantastic.
You got exec afterwards.
Fair enough. We'll now open it up for proponent testimony on LB 849. Welcome.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Joe Bob Atkins. That's two first names, JOEBOBTKINS. I am speaking on behalf of the Professional Insurance Agents of Nebraska on their legislative committee, as well as myself, my own agency. I have agencies in Brady, Cozad, Arnold, North Platte, Mullen, and Grant, Nebraska. We write a large amount of commercial and farm accounts. I'm here today to support LB 849. As the senator said, so there has been some talk of the opposition and myself inside that, and we have kind of agreed to sit down at the table and talk more about it. They have agreed with some of our positions, and I've agreed with some of their positions. And when it comes back to the original part of the bill in 2000 that got introduced, we agreed with the farm and ranch being included in personal lines. Personal lines accounts on a farm and ranch was very similar back in 2000. A farm shop was pretty much a farm shop. There wasn't much employees, there wasn't much work comp. There's usually maybe a son in the farming operation. So farm and ranch is pretty similar. A pivot was a pivot. Cattle shed was an open front cattle shed. There wasn't a lot of stuff in it. And in today's age, that's not the case anymore. Our agriculture has really ramped up, and they are businesses. And a lot of our communities, they're the largest employers. The farm employees are some of the highest income earners in our community. A farm shop building now has full floor drains in it. It has three-phase power in it. The inside of them are really extravagant. They've got different types of power. They come in with farm offices in them. They have their own accountants come in to their farm offices. They have work comp. They have employee benefits. They're corporations. They're LLCs. They come in and act just like a business. And they operate some of the business, whether it's a trucking industry inside of it. They sell seed corn. They sell some type of fertilizer. And we're insuring them the same way as what we did 20 some years ago. And this is kind of a challenge and attribute to them when we come into that amount of what happens when someone gets bad claims history. We've had around 500,000 of non-renewals this year on larger farms and ranches. What we do on commercial accounts when that happens is we talk to the carrier and say, what about increasing the deductible to 25, 50,000? And they all say, that's great. But the issue with that is it lowers their premium. So it doesn't work that way. Non-renewals come out. Then we look at non-standard auto accounts or have a non-standard umbrella account. Now we got producers out there that are with a non-admitted carrier. They're not under the Department of Insurance. They're not part of the guaranteed fund. Agents aren't covered by E&O because we don't know the exact, if there's anything of solubility with the carriers that they're wrote with. So there's a lot of issues that go on when those happen. So we would love the opportunity to treat it like a commercial account. Commercial accounts are very different. Individual risk premium modification. They come in and we can adjust one. A building today of that same farm building that we have is the same rate as a 1965 Corvette with spray and foam insulation with a welder right beside it, tires on the outside, pallets stacked up in fuel barrels. It's the same rate. That's not right for some of them inside there. So they are businesses. The guy right down the street that's a seed corn dealer, they can do debits and credits, but our farmers and ranchers can't. And I think that's an unfair opportunity we're giving our agriculture producers in a tough reinsurance market and a tough market altogether. Our carriers are putting a lot of restrictions on new business. They're putting something such as no new business if there's been no claims or claims in the past 3 years. So there's a lot of inability for agents to move people back and forth and creating a tough environment for our farmers and ranchers.
Thank you very much for your perspective on that. We definitely appreciate you coming down. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Additional proponents for LB 849. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Shane Cool, ShaneCool. I'm a farmer producer in Custer County area, and I thank the Senator Slama and the committee for letting me voice my opinion here. I am absolutely not an expert on insurance, nor do I want to be. The two before me did a lot better job of explaining things, so but I just want to give you some input from my standpoint. I do understand that LB 849 will eliminate the words farm and ranch in the provisional relating to adjustments. I have 6 employees. I raise corn and beans and also have a small commercial spraying business. This business I insure commercially under a different entity, mainly for liability purposes. So I have a farm policy and a commercial policy that both insure similar and like equipment and buildings. My commercial policy, it amazes me every year that it's so much less for the same equipment, a sprayer is $400,000 sprayer. Doesn't matter if it's owned by my commercial policy or my farm policy, but on the commercial side, it's way less. I have more variability with how I structure deductibles in my commercial policy. I have always questioned this. The main difference is my commercial policy can make adjustments based on acres or use, safety equipment, facilities. Farm and ranch has no adjustments. For example, I have a sprayer that I may spray 20,000 acres on my on my commercial policy. That same sprayer may spray 1,000 acres on my farm policy, or if a separate could spray 1,000 acres. So my commercial policy can come in and make adjustments. Hey, how many acres are you spraying? In my farm policy, it doesn't matter. It's the same. So that's the difference where LB 849 can help these agents, especially in times when you are looking at, you had a hailstorm that did $100,000 of damage on buildings and everything, and now you're looking at non-renewal for something that you had nothing to do with how your management was. And now, and the commercial policy can come in and say, okay, all right, how many acres you do? What's this do? And they can adjust. It makes it work a little harder, but they can adjust. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cool. Oh, hold on. Do we have any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Chairman Slama and Banking and Commerce Committee. My name is Justin Connor, JUSTINCONNER. I'm a third generation farmer feeder from Custer and Logan counties. I support LB 849 as an ag businessman. Our operation, we conduct business as a business in the business as a community does. We purchase equipment, fertilizer, fuel, along with conduct other business that the insurance rates get a break on the buildings of business. I believe as a farmer feeder, we should have the same opportunity. Our operation got canceled and only had one carrier offer. Our agent said we had no other option with the existing company due to being canceled. Why do us as an ag corporation not have the same option for decreased insurance rates on our ag business buildings of business? Those are the reasons I'm in support of LB 849 again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Connor, for your time. We appreciate it. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much for making the trip. Well,
Thank you. Thank you, committee, and for your services.
well, thank you.
My name is Dan Blowers, DANBLOWERS. I represent Blowers Farms. Thank you for letting us come and speak on behalf of LB 849. We are a farm and have a cow-calf and backgrounding operation. We farm and ranch in 3 different counties, Custer, Logan, and Lincoln. We also sell post pounders and beef directly to consumers. We have 8 employees and a bookkeeper and some part-time help. 2 years ago, we got dropped by Nationwide for things out of our control, hail, lightning strike, and we had one insurance company that renewed us, thankfully. I am told today that a big claim in the last 3 years, there is no company that will take new farm accounts. I believe that LB 849 will give us the possibility to negotiate, won't be automatically dropped. Insurance is a necessary evil, but we need it to be sustainable so we can lease combines and get loans on equipment. I do not understand why a Pioneer dealer and a channel dealer within a mile of us can pay 20 to 40% less on their buildings, and we have the same buildings. We just recently renewed our fuel system. The electrician said we are wired up like a gas station with all the explosive devices and fire safety equipment, but yet we do not get credit for that. Farm and ranch of any size are ran like a commercial business. I feel that LB 849 will have farm and ranch be more attractive to insurance companies, which creates more competition so we can keep insurance and stay sustainable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blowers. Are there any questions from the committee? See none, thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you.
And for saying thank you. That almost never happens. So this is much appreciated. Additional proponent testimony for LB 849. Seeing none, anyone here to testify in opposition to LB 849? Seeing none, anyone here in a neutral capacity on LB 849? welcome back.
Thank you. Chairwoman Slama and members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. My name is Robert N. Bell. Last name is spelled B-E-L-L. I'm the Executive Director of Registered Lobbyist for the Nebraska Insurance Federation. As you know, the Federation is the State Trade Association of Nebraska Insurance Companies. I am here today in a neutral capacity on LB 849. According to the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, over $1.35 billion dollars of farm insurance is written on the risk in Nebraska, the 7th highest in the nation. 6 of the 10 largest writers of farm insurance in our Federation members. These members account for almost 89% of the market share. The Nebraska domestic company Farmers Mutual Nebraska is the single largest farm insurer in the state with 41.25% of the market share. The insurance provided to farmers and ranchers is very important to the success of the agricultural economy of our state. Nebraska has taken a prudently conservative approach to rate setting for farm insurance and currently does not allow insurers to deviate from the rating system filed and reviewed by the Nebraska Department of Insurance. LB 849 would change the system to allow flexible rating of plus or minus 40% of the base rates. Federation members have reviewed and discussed the provisions of LB 849, and they have a variety of opinion and believe the issue needs further study. The property and casualty industry agrees that some benefits may exist for allowing deviation from the base rates, but the method proposed in this bill is a bit too extreme and would lead to market disruption, as opposed to many other states which utilize a system called individual rate premium modification credits and debits, which is like listed. It's a system listed out in the law. What this legislation would do would just allow straight flex rating of plus or minus 40%, which means it could go up or it could go down. However, we would like to study the issue a little bit further. We've had discussions with Senator Jacobson and some of the agent trade associations and, promised to sit down with them over the summer. For these reasons, the Nebraska Insurance Federation is neutral on LB 849. And despite his best efforts, Senator Jacobson gets to spend time with the insurance companies again this summer. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Bell, and golly gee whiz, I'm sure he's looking forward to that. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Additional neutral testimony on LB 849. Seeing none, Senator Jacobson, you're welcome to close.
Well, once again, it's been a long afternoon, so I'll be very brief here. I think as outlined by Mr. Bell, we have agreed that we will sit down, and I did have an opportunity to sit down with Farmers Mutual and had a very productive conversation with them. Obviously, Joe Bob in his testimony indicated that they've also had those conversations. So the plan will be to spend another summer with Robert Bell and all of his friends. So we're going to be pretty close. At least I get to have tacos over at the cheap gas station taco place. So with that, thank you for the time. I'd entertain any questions.
Thank you, Senator Jacobson. Are there any questions? Seeing none, before we close out, we did have 3 proponent letters for the record and 1 opponent letter for the record for LB 849. This brings to a close our public hearings for today. The committee will now go into the previously announced executive session.